Hey YouTube! Welcome to the Brook Trout Homestead. Today we're going to talk about speeding up the ripening process right before the frost. Alright guys, so I got a question earlier in the comments of one of my videos asking about loofah. So we have a bunch of loofah growing. Actually, our loofah got an extremely late start because of the heat. I'm shocked that they just took off the way they did. As you can see, I have bigger loofah and I have smaller loofah. We are in September, so the frost is a little further away, but I know a lot of you are going to be enduring frost very soon. So what do you do when you have big green loofah? They're not ripening, they're not drying out, they're not ready, they're not even in their sponge form yet. What I do, I find these runner vines. So this is just a vine that is going to continue growing out. And you see all of these little loofah? This vine is growing really nicely. It will be attaching itself to different places. Its full job is to grow more loofah. I don't want this to happen. I don't want more loofah. I want my loofah to already dry out. I want it to mature, the ones that I have. So what I'm going to do, I am going to go all the way to the next loofah here, and I'm going to snip. This is a runner vine. You do not need this, especially if your frost is coming. Just this little cut that I made is going to stop that from growing. Will stop this vine from growing, and it'll ripen up the loofah that's already up there and whatever else is attached to it. Loofah and other squash plants grow a lot of vines. They throw out a lot of runner vines. You don't need them all. I know it's tempting to want like a ton of different vines going different places, growing a bunch more fruit, but sometimes, well, the majority of the time, you don't get all of the fruit that is maturing. Like it just won't mature in time. So I go ahead and I cut the runners. I'm going to do this one the same way. I'm going to wait. I'm going to snip it right at the part where the bigger loofah is. So my loofah is pretty much done. I don't see any more big runners in this area. I have loads of squash and other loofah to do, so come with me that way. Okay. Alright guys, so we're in a whole nother area. Loofah all over the place. Let's say the frost is a month away. What am I going to do when cutting the runners is just not enough? You see this little loofah? This will not grow in time. Snip it off. That takes all the energy that was going into this and it puts it into the other fruit, into the other vines. I'm going to look for more runners here. And usually the runners, you can see them yeah, here we go. They pop up. Like they just poke right up. So they're easy to see. I'm going to go all the way to see, there's not even any fruit on this part. I'm going to cut all the way back here. And honestly, I could probably just leave this on the trellis. It won't grow. I mean, I'd cut its oxygen and all that good stuff. It's water away. Let me find another little loofah. This one. This will not grow. So I snip it off. And guess what? If you have a bigger size, let's look. This one here. Oh, a little bit bigger than this. So about this size to this size. These are edible. You can eat these. You can just peel them up, cut them up, and then add them to soups, stews, stir fries. These are edible, the smaller fruit. Once they get bigger, here's a good one. Thicker, they start to feel a little bit more hollow. And that means that the sponge is already forming. Even though it's not all the way formed, it's already forming. Make sure you feel for that. So don't grab this to eat it. Just let it sit there and let it dry out. And you can have this on the vine for up to, just up to the frost. Like, I would wait to the very last minute to pick my loofah. Worst case, they're dry but not all the way. I would just leave them on some newspaper or some cardboard paper in the shed or in a cool place so it can dry. Airflow, basement, whatever you need to do to let it dry. It will dry in your house if it's good enough, if it's already formed the sponge. No worries, no stress. Alright guys, our loofah, our birdhouse gourds, our squash situation is extremely intense. I'm blown away, honestly. I can barely walk in our pathways that we've created. Like I told you, usually the runners will stick up. So this is a great example of that. They're just sticking up. Go ahead and just snip. Just snip these runners off. It's so funny, I can tell what the birdhouse gourds are, not just because of the leaves, but the smell is almost nutty. So it's just funny when I snip them because I immediately smell it. Look at all this oregano under it. They were taking completely over my oregano. We've kind of neglected a lot of this because of heat and just honestly just being busy. A lot of this is so easy to come up. We have a bunch of little loofah all through here. Look over here. I don't see many runners. I've been trying to keep up with them. There's actually one right over there. See this? Not today, loofah. Not today. This huge runner. Now let's get to the squash. I said let's get to the squash, but since I was walking this way, I ended up trampling some watermelon plants, and just like the others, watermelon have runners. I don't want all these. I want to get watermelon. It's a little late for watermelon where I am. Not extremely late, but it is late. I see little watermelon forming in here. So I want to make sure that these grow. This variety, I honestly forgot what it is, but they're all green and they have an orange flesh. They get pretty big, so I need as much nutrients going into this fruit as I can. This vine is not going to give me a ton, so the ones that it does give me, I want it to be sweet, I want them to be ripe, and I need to cut these runners. These do the same thing. They stick up just like the loofah. Alright, so this is extremely forest-like. It is very hard for me to get all these squash out of here. They've taken over our beds, as you can see over there. I all of a sudden got this ginormous pumpkin plant, which has a bunch of pumpkin on it. I did not plant that, which it is a blessing. It's just a matter of trying to find the ripe fruit. It's very difficult in this type of situation. So I would do the same with a spaghetti squash or a butternut squash. Usually those squash, the vine goes straight and then it'll let off runners elsewhere. I will look at the most productive part of the vine. I would leave it alone. And the other vines that come off, I will just snip them right off. I can't even tell if I have an example right now because everything is extremely entangled. I don't know if you can tell by looking at this. The Cocozelle squash has been one of my most productive. So as you can see, it's a zucchini breed variety, and it grew extremely long. I have, I think, 4 or 5, and I did not expect them to grow as elongated as they did. But they're happy and they're healthy, and I believe it's a part of the compost in the heavy mulching method. So I don't want to dig and find stuff to cut. I'm scared. I don't want to mess anything up. So let's get out of this area, and I'll show you the tromboncino squash and the cantaloupe that I'm dealing with right now. Check out these beautiful butternut. I have so many of these. They're so big and beautiful. Here are some more of our Cocozelle. The vine borers tried, but they did not touch the Cocozelle. I have some watermelon over there growing. I am hoping to make sure that these ripen. More loofah. Runners. Cut the runners. I also have a second harvest of long beans. I'm excited for these, but I'm hoping that on their way up to grow the long beans, it doesn't get extremely overwhelmed with all the craziness back up there. Morning glories and more loofah. Well, this is 2 plants of tromboncino squash. They're already starting to branch off in different ways. They start over here. Very, very healthy plants. I don't see any tromboncino yet that are actually formed. They're just starting to get flowers. Actually, I have a small one over here. Tiny, tiny one that is not pollinated yet. So I'm actually going to make the choice of leaving this vine alone until at least one is pollinated. So we'll just wait on that. Here's a runner with nothing on it. So I'm going to have to just cut this off. This is a squash runner. I'm showing you this because this is for my people who have a frost coming. I want you guys to not be afraid to cut your vines back. Cut them back to the fruit and allow the fruit to grow while still connected. You don't want more of this. You know how much energy goes into this thing? A lot of nutrient, a lot of energy. Cut them off. Here's an example of a cantaloupe vine. Same thing. I have a few growing on here, but I'm just going to allow this to sit a little longer because I am in Texas and our frost is not near. I'm going to allow this to grow a little longer. But if you are in a place where your frost is around the corner, cut that runner. Tomatoes. You can do the exact same thing. I know a lot of you know what a sucker looks like. A sucker is pretty much a branch that comes from a right angle and it starts to grow out. I would go ahead and cut these. Cut them off because these are not needed. You want as much energy going into your fruit as possible. If you want to save these, you can. Go ahead and put them in a jar of water. You can keep them in dirt, and you can allow them to grow in a greenhouse if you have one, or in a sunny south side windowsill. They'll grow. You may even get fruit indoors. I mean, it happens. Get some grow lights over them. It'll work. But for me, I don't need them right now. But it's something I could do in the future. To make it easier to see what's going on, be sure you're weeding. Look at all this vetch. With a mulching method, this comes off extremely easy. As soon as I grab it, I just pull and it's already up. So when you're weeding and being sure that you get all this out, you can see the fruit much more easy. I have acorn squash going here. And I have some butternuts as well. I could trim my acorn squash, but like I said, I'm not close to frost right now. So I'm looking forward to as many as I can possibly have. And we are super thankful for what the Lord has blessed us with. I mean, you see here, and you can see so much fruit. I call even vegetables fruit because the botany, the anatomy, it's all the same. They call it fruit. If you want to look over there, we have a pumpkin sitting. I'm not sure what kind of pumpkins decided to reseed. I'm hoping they're sugar pie pumpkins, and not a huge variety, because I would love to make some pies and have it grow before it hits our frost. I hope I helped you guys with speeding up the ripening process. I mean, you can't do much more than that. I mean, make sure everything's in a sunny area. And to cure your squash, let's say you have to rip everything out. I would rip everything out before the frost, for sure. I don't want anything to get ruined. All the hard work, all the time you've spent, all the time it's spent growing. Go ahead, cut your butternut at the stem, a little bit above the stem. I'd probably do a good 2 inches of stem on there, and put it in a sunny window with some airflow, maybe a shelf. Allow it to cure for maybe 5 days, and then you can, if it's super ripe, it'll cure and it'll last for up to, I don't know, 5-6 months, hopefully, in a cool, dark place, maybe a pantry. But if it's not quite ripened, but I mean, it's good enough, it should still last you a little bit, not near as long. But remember, you can eat green squash. Green squash is one of my favorite, and that goes for butternuts, spaghetti. I mean, a lot of those squashes can be eaten green. So don't be afraid to make a hash or to put that in your soups and stews. It's still just as good. I hope I helped you guys. I hope you have a great night. God bless you guys, and happy harvest.